Welcome back to Luxury Cruising. I'm your host, Krystal, and today we're talking about the luxury of time. My guest, Cindy, today has really perfected the art of slow cruising. It's something that I have done once and hope to repeat again. And she has been on multiple slow cruises, also known as transatlantic cruises. And I cannot wait to get into her philosophy around transatlantic cruises, around slow cruising, and just the ease that transatlantic cruising provides. So, Cindy, please tell the audience anything you would like them to know about you.
First of all, my name is Cindy Pirtle. I'm a travel agent in Spring, Texas with Expedia Cruises, and a really strange, varied background. I was a trial attorney for 20 years, retired, went to seminary, and was the director of adult discipleship at church and preached and taught Bible studies. And then I retired and what I've learned is I'm not very good at retirement. So I am now a travel agent, my third career, and absolutely loving being able to help people with their dreams, really, honestly, to find what is a spark for each person within their budget, within their time frames, multi-generational, solo. So it's fantastic. It really is. Even though I do book all types of travel, I would really say that my specialty and my focus is ocean and river cruising. Those are the two things that I sell the most and personally do the most. You had said that I had done several. I just got back 2 days ago, from a 40-day trip, and so I finished my 95th cruise and my 31st country. So it was just phenomenal, and 2 of the cruises were transatlantics, which is how we got started talking on this, and, so there you have it.
Amazing, amazing. So, clarify, was the 40 days on a ship or the whole trip in its entirety was 40 days?
No. So what I did is a 16-night transatlantic from Galveston, Texas to Barcelona, Spain. Then I had 10 days and I did that land. So I flew to Strasbourg, France, and use that because they have a great train system in France and use that as a point to go to Luxembourg and Switzerland, Germany, and all over. So that was nice. Then went back to Barcelona and did a 13-night transatlantic from Barcelona to Orlando, Florida before I flew home.
Oh, that's amazing. So, tell us, on which ships have you done transatlantics?
So I did 3 Royal Caribbeans and a Carnival. And part of that is because 2 of the Royal Caribbeans were going out of Galveston. Since I live in Houston, that really is easy and it avoids airfare. The first one was Voyager of the Seas, which is kind of a mid-sized ship. The second one was out of Miami. That was Independence of the Seas. That's the next level up of ship. The one I went over this time was Harmony of the Seas, which is one of Royal Caribbean's Oasis class ships. Huge ship, so many amenities. And then coming home, I was on Carnival Glory, another what I would call small to mid-sized ship.
Got it, got it. And why do you do so many transatlantics?
So many reasons. Some that my clients have said that are important and that are important to me. Oh, and there you saw I was moving. There we go. The first is the cost. So price-wise, transatlantics tend to be a little cheaper than other cruises, first and foremost because you have so many sea days, and they recognize that. The second is to avoid airports. Airfare is not cheap. You have the headache the last couple of years with the airlines canceling or moving your flights. You have the rush to the airport. You have security sitting in a tiny seat for hours on end, jet lag. That's a lot. So with a transatlantic, you avoid all that. And yes, it takes a little longer, but you're going through time changes an hour a day, not 10 hours at a whack, right? So that's lovely. Third, you have the opportunity to meet and really know some fantastic people that you would never meet in your daily goings. because you have people that have come over from Europe to take the transatlantic back. It's not a 5 night or a 7 night where everybody is so busy with their family or their excursions that you're done. You have all of this time to get to know people and their backgrounds and their histories, and so that really is just fantastic. But I think the best thing, and it's the thing that you and I discussed, is that luxury of time. Because there are so many sea days, there's nothing that's going to keep you so busy that you're exhausted.
Yeah.
And the transatlantics offer you so much, more so than a regular 3, 4, 5, or 7 night cruise. So, as a general rule, cruise lines will bring on guest lecturers for transatlantics. And so, on this last one, on Harmony of the Seas, we had three different guest lectures. One of them was Don Knotts' nephew and talking all about his life and his career. So, that was interesting. One year, we had a Titanic expert. He was absolutely fascinating. So not just about the sinking of the ship, but how it was built and some of the families and the china. And that was really interesting because that particular cruise ended up in Southampton, where in Southampton in the United Kingdom, they have a huge Titanic museum because that's where it was built. So that was really one cruise. They offered a few lessons in Portuguese. So that was fun. Napkin folding, towel animals. They always have trivia. So if you want to be busy, and of course, they have a casino and a pool on Harmony, there is a huge central park in the center of the ship. And so if you wanna be busy with all of that I mentioned, you certainly have the option. You could book yourself one thing after another. But if you don't want that, especially, like I said, on those Oasis class ships, you have this huge park in the center of a ship. And in the mornings, you go and you have your coffee. You're sitting in a park setting with trees and bushes. You can hear birdsong. The sun is shining down, and you have no idea that you're actually on a cruise ship. It's stunning. You can sit on your balcony or go up on deck and listen to that whoosh, whoosh of
Yeah.
the waves. And it's so calming and grounding. And all of the things that you might have in your day, cooking and grocery shopping and the family, bills and cleaning and everything that could be an issue in your life is suddenly purged with that.
Very nice. Well, yeah, you said so much, and I wanted to touch on a couple of things. Well, first thing you said was the price. Absolutely, your per day, per person price can be significantly lower. And I think it has to do with, especially for North Americans and Americans, we're not used to taking more than a week off at a time. And the transatlantics are generally more than 10 days, usually more like 12, 14, or 16 days, depending on which two ports you're going to. And so they are per night, generally less, which for some people, especially if you can work remotely or if you're retired or if you have the leisure time, or if you just want to take the 2 weeks off, you just have a lot of time off, it can be a really per night an economical way to go. And the other thing too that we noticed, which was not a positive for us because we were doing our transatlantic with our two kids, but there were very few kids on that transatlantic, especially school-age kids, teenagers you could count on one hand, and my daughter was one of them. And for people who want a more adults-only experience, a transatlantic can really fulfill that, not necessarily having to be on an adults-only cruise line. And I think the one thing that you touched on too is sort of like the daily what I found on mine is I realized that I couldn't just leave my day to the whims. I did much better when I actually had I'm like, I'm gonna get up at this time. And what I found too, and you tell me if this is true, mine was a celebrity ship, but tell me if this was the same on Carnival and or Royal, but like the activities were predictable. There was a semi-predictable schedule of this is the time the trivia always is, and then there's some adult craft, and then there's a talk, and then it's lunchtime, and then it's this. So it was very predictable, which meant that I had some vague sense of a schedule. Now, if I didn't wanna go to adult crafts, I could take a nap. I could read on the balcony or outside. You could go for a swim, whatever it was, and when the weather was good. Of course, the kids were in this pool at all every afternoon, no matter what the weather was. But yeah, I think that is such a nice way to cruise, unlike a shorter cruise, even 7 days, you've got all these ports and maybe you're excited to go on if you're a relatively new cruiser, maybe not. It's like you're gonna go to this excursion and you're gonna go here, and then you're getting off the ship and just the toll. I don't know how many times you've been to Nassau, but just the physical toll of getting off the ship in Nassau and doing a little bit of shopping in the port area and getting back on. By the time you get back on, you're like, "Oh, I need the chair again. I need the chase again."
Well, so we go out of Galveston, and we have the Western Caribbean repeatedly. That's all we really have. And so ours is Cozumel, Costa Maya, and Roatan, Honduras.
Yeah.
I don't need to get off, really, because I've been to them so many times, like I said, 95 cruises. But you're right about getting into that routine. So most of the ones I've been on, you find your people. My people are the crocheters and the knitters.
Mhm.
And so on every transatlantic I've been on, there's been a group of folks and we have a place. And on sea days, we meet there every day at 10 o'clock or whatever the time is. And so you're right. I have a schedule. I get up, I go to the cafe and get my coffee and maybe have some breakfast. And then you get into your routine of what you're going to do every day. And with my work schedule, I don't want to say on call 24/7, but it sometimes works that way, especially if I'm in Europe 7 hours ahead, right? At 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm answering the phone. But yes, sure, I'll book that cruise for you. Um, but the great thing is, even 10 years ago, you couldn't go on a cruise and expect to work because the Wi-Fi simply wasn't there. And now I really do. I'm able to pretty much conduct my business no matter where I am. Now, there's always going to be a few days. Weather is the biggest thing. If it's cloudy, if it's overcast, you may not have a great signal. But for the most part, I can get everything done. And then I will go back to your comment about kids. So, celebrity is what we consider a luxury line, well, or a premium line. You start out at the family lines or family slash value lines. Those are going to be like MSC, NCL, Carnival, Royal. And in those, you're going to have more families. And even on a transatlantic, while you certainly are not going to have the amount of children that you're going to have on other ships or, during shorter sailings, but you will have a good number of homeschool kids. And because it is those family value lines, that's where you're gonna find enough where they'll have a group to kinda hang around with. Once you bump up then to that next level, which would be Princess, Celebrity, Holland America, and Disney, and Virgin Voyages, now, of course, you're getting to a level where because prices go up, that tends not to be a family line, right? And then, of course, once you go from there and go to Silver Seas or Seven Seas or Viking Ocean or any of those, really the chances of seeing children is slim and none.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it was a celebrity. I thought because it was spring break, and I know that spring break for the contemporary lines that you mentioned, like the prices are outrageous, and it is. You're going to have on a ship with 5 or 6,000 people, at least 1,000 of those people are going to be kids of all ages. But I thought this is spring break. I was amazed at the bargain basement price I was able to get for this cruise over spring break. And I think that celebrities sometimes, especially during peak season, can be very competitively priced with some of the family lines because there isn't as much of a draw to them during
Right.
those peak during maybe a little bit more, not as much during Christmas or New Year's, but definitely during spring break. I've just and also just booking and boarding on cruise lines, you're getting in line at the airport and you see where people are going. And definitely the Carnival and the Royal and the MSC have all the kids. And then the Princess and the Celebrity, there's a couple kids, but not quite as many. That's so interesting to know. Yeah, the homeschool, yeah, that would be a fantastic opportunity for homeschoolers to be able to see the world and
It is fantastic. It's in a whole new avenue of education. Since COVID, we've seen a lot more homeschool families and a fantastic way to supplement your education, not simply by reading about a location or a war or archaeology or a culture, but actually visiting that country and seeing those things. Yes, and that has a value so far beyond the cost of a cruise.
yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. The question that I had for you was so the transatlantics, and we can also talk about transpacifics, but these sailings tend to be seasonal. They
Yes.
tend to happen. So I'll let you, since this is your business, talk about the seasonality of transatlantics and transpacifics. And I'm very curious if maybe you can weave into your answer is how you managed to find a transatlantic in, I think it was like late March, early April, going from Europe to the US. I was like, that's a find. That was how you made your whole trip possible without having to go on a plane at all. So I want to hear that
Exactly.
story.
So, yes, you are correct that there's definitely a cruise line schedule. And so most of the cruise lines inundate the Caribbean during the summer. In the spring, so if we start off in the spring, and it didn't used to start until April, but now they started bumping it up to March. I think the weather is not as nice as when they moved it to April. But that being said, so in the spring is when you have your ships going to Europe. In May, we have ships that are headed to Alaska. So this is when people are going everywhere, moving those ships into those locations because the Alaskan season is only May to September. So you have to have all those ships up there, and that's where they stay until September, and then they get rerouted to the Caribbean. And just like going to Europe, same thing. Then everything stays there through the summer, and then everything comes back in the fall because, again, we gotta move them to the warm weather where we can fill them up. I was very lucky, and obviously I have a help, right? Because 'Cause I'm a travel agent and I keep an eye on things. But Glory had gone in for some maintenance, and so it had to go in for maintenance and come back. And Glory had come over. There were people on the return flight that had been on 3 cruises on Glory. So they came over, then there was another loop they did. Then the ship went into dry dock for a week, and then it did the transatlantic. So there were folks that had done all 3. They came over on it, did another one, did some land, and then did the transatlantic back. So, yes, that was fascinating, but you have to keep an eye on those, and that is not something that you'll see a lot of. That's just you have to know. I would mention one other thing, and it's a transatlantic, but not in the way that we think about it. There are liners and ships, so cruise ships are the ones we're talking about. And the reason that it takes 13, 14, 16 days to get somewhere is because of the size of them and the way that they're built. They're going at a particular speed. Ocean liners are built very differently and they can go much quicker. So there is an option for folks that if you need to come back and you don't want to fly over the ocean, the long flight, and it's not spring or fall, Cunard is actually the only one that offers every 7 days from Southampton to New York. And it only takes 7 days, and, you're Southampton to New York. They empty, they load back to Southampton. So it's another really great option for folks who either are afraid of flying, don't wanna fly, expense or whatever, because a lot of times you can find inexpensive domestic flights from New York to wherever you happen to live.
Yeah, that's a good reminder that, yeah, I can't remember. There's only one ocean liner right now. It is Cunard. It might be the Queen Mary 2. It is one of the
Mm,
Queen 2s, but I don't remember which one.
it's
Um,
Queen Mary.
Yeah, and so, yes, like, you could do a quick 5-day over between Southampton and New York, and that's definitely a dream of mine. Not because I don't like flying, but just because I think it would be just such a great thing to do.
A totally different experience. And I liken Cunard more to river cruising. So you're not gonna have swimming pools and casinos and slides and things like that, right? It is classier. It is more old school. It is a level above. And so that's wonderful. But really, I hate to say it, almost apples and oranges. River cruising and ocean cruising are nothing
Yeah,
alike. Both are amazing, but for very different ways. And let me say also, because we've discussed the different types, the value family lines, the premium lines, the luxury lines, there is a pro and a con for each of the lines in all the way up.
absolutely.
That means there's something for each person. I have people who are Carnival people and they will not budge. I have loyal to Royal people. I have people that will not get off Oceania. It's Oceania, a penthouse suite, because their food is excellent. But at the same time, I have Azamara people. You have the Silver Sea. I think either you find your people or you find your comfort zone. And like I said, I tried to go on all of them. And I do. I find pros and cons on each one of them. Now, the pro and the con is my pro and con because it truly is a subjective pro and con, right? Do I like the food? The best food I've ever had was on the river cruises.
Good to know.
Amazing. There's only 128 people on that cruise.
And everyone has different tastes. I have heard both ways, right? I have heard the same cruise line, river cruise line. Someone has said the food was just average, and other people said, oh, this was compared to a Michelin star restaurant. So it really is subjective. But your point is, you're reminding me of something else around what you said is that you're going to find your people. I do believe there is a cruise line and a type of cruising for everyone if you are open to looking. But the other thing that you said was around finding your people, and you said you found the crocheters and knitters. And what I also love about cruising in general, but is just amplified on a transatlantic, is this is a group of people. It's sort of a pre-established group of people who are all interested in the same thing as you are. Whether it's using this mode of transportation, whether it's learning about like the cruise that we did went to the Azores, we stopped in the Azores, learning about the different,
Went to Degada.
Atlantic mammal life. Yes, Punta Delgada. And so you have an established group, you're going to find people. And I also think that in general, cruisers are some of the nicest people to travel with.
Amazing.
And so you're going to find people to talk to. You don't have to talk to anybody. You don't even have to talk to the people in the buffet if that's where you want to eat all your meals. And you can always find someone to talk to if you really want to.
Well, and I travel solo a lot. My husband is not yet retired. And so we always joke that I'm the scouting team. I'm going to all these places to see what is the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? But that being said, and back to your point about amazing places, this last cruise, I got to go to Gibraltar, which was absolutely phenomenal. I stood on the top of this mountain and I'm standing in the United Kingdom, and there is Spain, and there is Morocco. So I am 3 countries, 2 continents, Europe and Africa, and then 2 bodies of water, the Mediterranean Sea and the Atlantic Sea. And there is the Hercules sign, right? Just fantastic. That's where the monkeys are, the only wild monkeys that are there. Amazing. And they're just very fascinating. St. Michael's Cave, this beautiful cavern where they have theater productions now. Just gorgeous, lit with the fluorescent lights. And then I ended up with a tour through the World War II tunnels. There's more tunnels under Gibraltar than there are streets for the pedestrians, and all of the history and the setups they had below in the tunnels. And then I walked all the way down the stairs to the bottom of Gibraltar, and had a phenomenal fish and chips because it, is the United Kingdom. Phenomenal fish and chips before I made my way back to the ship. Absolutely stunning day, and that's because it was a cruise that I
And,
got to go to a place.
and the other thing too that I sort of mentioned without saying, and you just mentioned without saying, is that the transatlantics allow us to see ports that you otherwise don't see. Like we had in our transatlantic, we had two port stops. One was Bermuda, which is like you can get there all the time, like not a big deal. But the Azores, most people only go on a transatlantic. You might be able to get one out of Barcelona or out of Southampton, but it's not that often. Same thing with Gibraltar. I don't know, you can tell me, maybe some of the Mediterranean ones go to Gibraltar. We mentioned Alaska, and yeah, some of the cruises and some of the lines, when you leave Alaska to go back to the Caribbean, they have to go through the Panama Canal. That's something all the way through, not just halfway through and back. There are so many cruises, I look at these all the time that leave from Alaska and then go to Australia because our winter is their summer cruise season. And so
Exactly.
you're going through Hawaii, you have multiple stops in Hawaii, there's multiple like Fiji, Bora, Easter Island, all of these amazing places
Fantastic, yes.
that you otherwise, unless you're gonna basically fly to Bora, you're not gonna get on a cruise.
Well, and they have several now that are leaving from Vancouver to Tokyo.
Yes, yes.
So you've got that option, and honestly, the Asian market has really opened up a lot. Um, we have a new airline. Oh, now it just escaped me. Gosh, what is it? Now I can't, now it's lost. I'm having a mature moment, but leaving out of Houston that's going to Japan and to Singapore. And so that's been fantastic, opening that up. Australia is a long flight, and those flights aren't cheap. And so being able to go to Australia on a cruise and see all the things on the way, in my mind, the value of not having to pay that huge airfare and mess with the airport and the customs and the jet lag and the tiny seat, regardless of where you're sitting, they're all tiny seats. That cost, not just financial, but that cost is so much higher
Yeah.
for us.
The physical, emotional cost of getting to the airport, making sure you're on time, having all your paperwork. A lot of times, especially for England and other places, you need specific visas, even for England and Europe these days. Even Americans need visas. Just all of that. I mean, you still need it on a cruise ship, but it just adds
Yes.
to it all.
Well, and quite frankly, let's talk about a first class seat, not cheap, right? You can do a transatlantic in a suite. And so you're talking about 16 days in a suite.
Yeah. For the similar price, a first class plane ticket, it still might be 12 to 15 hours, but hopefully you're sleeping for a lot of it.
Exactly. And, you know, we're talking luxury. And so luxury is usually going to be defined as those suite class cabins, right? Which is fine. And I've been in the junior suites and the grand suites and been up in one of the aqua suites on Royal Caribbean. Oh, and so all of those are phenomenal. But I'm going to tell you, it's also luxury if you are simply traveling solo and you have a cabin all to yourself.
Yeah.
That is a luxury of, I don't want to get up right now. I want to go to bed early. I want to stay in the casino for another hour. I want to eat the buffet instead of going to the main dining room. You know what? It's 2 in the morning. I think I'll have pizza. It is a luxury to not have to think, that's so awful, of anyone but yourself just for a little bit.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Anything else about a transatlantic cruise that you think we haven't covered today?
I think one of the greatest things about transatlantic cruises is it gets you to a place. I'm gonna go back to my last trip. I have family, I do genealogy as well, and I have family that were from the Alsace-Lorraine area, and I didn't know a whole lot. I mean, I had census data from when they got over here, but because I was staying in France, I actually took 2 days and did some genealogy research. Now, that's been on my mind for 30 years. But I don't know that I would never have said, Okay, I'm going to fly over and we're going to do genealogy, right? I'm going to find these folks. I simply certainly wouldn't have done that. But because I was going over, I knew I had 10 days between cruises and I had the whole world. What am I going to do in 10 days? And so in those 10 days, I did get to go to Switzerland and Luxembourg, which were two countries I'd never been to, which was fantastic. But it also gave me that opportunity to do a little research and talk to some folks locally and see local churches and things like that. It gives you the impetus to realize some of your dreams that you weren't necessarily thinking that you'd ever achieve. Those things that you thought, I would love to do the Swiss Alps, but I did a river cruise last year for my 60th birthday. And always, I was a Sound of Music. And because we were going to Salzburg, that was it. I had to do the Sound of Music tour. And while they are very happy to let you know that the movie is nothing like the real story, I stood and was the ugly American singing, "Doe, a deer, a female." I was, 16 going on 17. I knew all the words and people would sing along with you. And it was a dream since I was a kid that I don't think I would have said, "Okay, well, we're going over simply to do the Sound of Music." But it was something I got. So, the Transatlantics and the Transpacifics actually give you that excuse and the opportunity to realize dreams that you thought would never be reached. That's the thing I love about my job, because even if it is a 7-night cruise, even if it is those shorter Caribbean cruises or an Alaskan cruise, if I can help somebody have that dream come true, when they come back and say, "Oh my gosh, it was amazing, Cindy." To be able to send somebody to Alaska and do a 7-night land concierge and then the cruise, and so they've gotten to see Alaska by land and cruise, the interior and then all along the coast. Just those kinds of things, really, dreams come true, and so that is the luxury. People today, sometimes I think, don't have hope. Hope and realizing dreams is a luxury. And it's a luxury that folks like you and I can help people realize. And so I'm so grateful that you gave me an opportunity to talk to you and to share my passion, really.
Oh, I am so glad that you came on the show. Tell us, what do you have in store? Like, what's on the schedule coming up, cruise-wise or not cruise-wise, luxury, transatlantic? What's on the schedule?
I have one big one. It's for my birthday next year. Highly recommend, because it hasn't been offered in a while. So I am doing a princess cruise. It's a 12-night, 8-country cruise, and it's round trip from Copenhagen, Denmark. And it's doing all the Baltic capitals. Now, obviously, we don't get to go to St. Petersburg, but we're doing Denmark and Norway and Sweden and Latvia and Poland. And so all of these places, I've not been to any of these countries. So these are more bucket list items. So that one I probably is the most fascinating one that I've got coming up. We do a lot, like my husband's birthday's in June, so we're doing a 7-night on Symphony out of Galveston. I'm doing a back-to-back in October because Liberty of the Seas is coming back to Galveston. And I've got some folks on the Transatlantic bringing it back, but I'll be doing it once it gets here. Next June, we're doing Alaska on Princess round trip from San Francisco, which is a different location because a lot of times, most of our cruising, when we're thinking about doing Alaska, it's Vancouver, Seattle, Anchorage. Those are our main Whittier. And Whittier is, that's the hard part because it's 3 hours from the Anchorage airport. Those cruises are less expensive, but that's a big long drive. But then going from Seattle, coming home, those flights are horrible. So I'm very excited because going out of San Francisco, you've got good flight capabilities, right? And it's an excellent itinerary, even though it's only 7 days. So, and that's on Princess as well.
That sounds
So
amazing. That sounds amazing. If anyone is interested in booking any of these cruises or any other cruise or travel with you, how could they get in touch with you?
So the easiest way, I've sent you a link to my website, and so that'll be on here somewhere. I'll give you my office number if we can do that. That's 832-529-1300. And my name is Cindy Pirtle, Pirtle. Sounds like a turtle, but spelled a little different. And so my email is cpirtle@expediacruises.com. I'm on Facebook just as Cindy Medor Pirtle. I don't do a business page. I do everything off my personal page. And part of that is because the majority of my clients have become such good friends. And my new clients are almost all referrals.
Yeah.
It's very rare that I meet someone new and they go, "Oh, well, what do you do?" Most of mine are phone calls going, "So and so said you booked their cruise and you did a great job and we love you." And so, but I'd love to help anybody. And the nice thing is, questions cost no money. As a travel agent, I cost no money. All travel agent commissions are already built into cruise line fares. You should never have to pay a travel agent to book a cruise. And we've got excellent group rates with Celebrity and with Royal Caribbean. And a lot of times we have groups already set up on river cruises and transatlantics. This transatlantics, I had about 35 guests of my clients because I
Wow.
had set up a group for them early on. So we had great rates, and so anyway, I'm sorry, I could talk for hours about cruising.
It's amazing. Likewise, your enthusiasm definitely comes through. I so appreciate you being on the podcast. That's how we were referred through one of your clients who's a friend of mine said, "You have to talk to Cindy." So I'm so glad we connected. I hope you will come back. Maybe we should talk about your
Anytime.
river cruise experience.
Next year, I can tell you about the Baltic capitals.
So listeners, thank you for joining me. And until next time, I wish you safe and luxurious cruising.